going to work. Look, possibly it is live casting as we speak, so we'll find out if that's the case or not. I see Cushing Giesi's little Hollywood square up on the screen. I don't know if you're there, Cushing, but just wanted to say hello. I am Janine Seitetsu Larsen. Hey, Cushing. I'm a Zen teacher and a resident priest with the Bright Cloud Zen practice groups in Seattle, where we are sitting day 4 of a 5-day commuter retreat. So we've been missing you, Cushing. I'm glad that you're here with us today and that all of you are here as well. Here we are with this commuter retreat with our family of Empty Moon Zen Sanghas on this June 4th, 2023. James Ford, Roshi, is up here with us in Seattle, and Jan Seymour Ford, also an Empty Moon senior Dharma teacher, will be joining us later today. So I'm very glad about that, just in time for the 5 precepts and Jukai ceremonies that we'll have this evening. We have, count them, 8 Seattle area practitioners who will receive the first 5 precepts, and 5 from California and Seattle who have prepared for Jukai. So that's pretty exciting. I will mention that we are here in Nathan Johnson Hall, which is the big fellowship hall of the Unitarian Universalist Church, the University Unitarian UU Church anyway. This building where we are, and this room where we are, this big vast room, well, it's vast for me, only recently got wired up to do Zoom. So we have these cameras up here, and there's one behind us back there. Only one of them works at a time, so we're not also getting a picture in my head. But this is the first time we are testing this equipment. What we have discovered so far is that the cameras work pretty well, and that the sound is not so great. I don't know how this is sounding to you, Cushing, but we've had other people on Zoom say that sometimes the sound is sort of garbled. One of the problems that I've been listening for while we've been sitting here is that this room has a giant air exchanger, because this building has excellent exchange of outside air, which is lovely for many things, and also sounds something like a hurricane sometimes. So that's why when we're sitting any given place in the room, we have to sort of shout in order for someone to be able to hear us over this big wind tunnel here. Well, anyway, so this Saturday, and Saturdays in general, are in fact a time when the Empty Moon Sanghas gather to have a Saturday morning program. We have enfolded it, I think, probably seamlessly with our retreat today. And one of the special features of the Saturday morning Empty Moon programs is to have a Dharma talk. So, sure, that should be me. We are going to talk today about the 6th precept. We've been pretty excited up here in Bright Cloud territory in the Seattle area, and from Zoomers all around, to have been investigating the precepts since early February. And it's been a very engaging process. We've had wonderful participation from both Zoom and folks in the room. We meet twice a week in that way, and have a full hour to talk about the precepts or whatever else it is. We also say hi to one another, of course. And that engagement over these past 6 months, like I say, has been high, and it's also let us go deep with both group reflection and personal introspection. In the meantime, our sibling Empty Moon Zen regulars have been taking a more leisurely approach with Dharma talks and reflections twice a month, right? Yeah. Okay, and do you do it 2 Saturdays a month? Do you do a Dharma talk also on Tuesday nights?
There's no Dharma talk on Tuesday.
Okay.
Just Saturday.
All right.
Sutra service and dedication. Great.
So Sutra service and dedication Tuesday nights, but Saturdays, it's all about the Dharma talk and otherwise being together for practice. But that has meant that Empty Moon is taking a more leisurely pace than we have up here, just kind of pushing through those precepts. And that's why the 6th precept today. So the 6th precept as you will probably recall, because I bet you have them all memorized, right? I've talked to you about whether or not there's going to be a test, but have I given you the right answer? We'll find out. At any rate, more commonly, we will hear the sixth precept referred to as the one about gossiping, or maybe the one about slander. And that's not wrong, but it's also insufficient to describe what this precept is really all about. So here are some alternative short definitions that help this sixth precept unfold. Always speak truthfully and constructively. Or, do not spread news, criticize, or condemn things that you do not know to be certain. Or, not slandering others, but cultivating and encouraging respectful speech. Or, not to gossip about others' faults, but to be understanding and sympathetic. So those all give just a little more nuance to this question of not gossiping or not spreading slander. Another one is not speaking of others' faults, but seeing the perfection in each one. So I quite like that because it also invites us to understand, what is that word perfection all about? And can we have perfection be just as it is and not some impossible to meet goal that we certainly will never meet? So perfection, something to look at in this one. At our Bright Cloud study sessions, we have greatly appreciated Diane Mujo Baker's book, Opening to Oneness. Looks like this. We call it the fish book. And I don't know if you can see why, but it's because there's a beautiful, very lively fish on the cover. So the fish book has been a favorite of ours. Mujo Baker calls the sixth precept non-talking about each other's errors and faults. And so that sounds kind of clunky to the ear, but it is intended to get the message across that the precepts invite us into a different consciousness with our actions. It is, in fact, not enough to refrain from a problematic habit pattern or a difficult behavior and stop or start doing something else. What Mujo Baker and others are encouraging us to step into is to truly follow this precept by entering a different state of being, not just doing. So one of the things that we've enjoyed, well, I've enjoyed, I don't know about the rest of you, with Mujo Baker's book is that she includes about half the book to investigate how Bodhidharma and how our friend, you know, the guy who founded Soto Zen, Dogen, thank you. You would think I would know that. How they also phrase the precepts. So I'd like to read just a little bit of this. The Bodhidharma version, she tells us, is self-nature is inconceivably wondrous. In the faultless Dharma, not talking about sins and mistakes is called not talking about others' faults and errors. And then John Dido Laurie, we also read one of Laurie's books, tweaking this translation, refers to this precept as refraining from speaking of others' errors and faults. Dogen's version, she says, is in the midst of the Buddha Dharma, we are the same way, the same Dharma, the same realization, the same practice. Do not talk about others' errors and faults. Do not destroy the way. So, as she says, so this is talking not just about not finding fault, which means that in our critic's mind, we are always looking for those faults. Not speaking about the faults of others includes such forms, she says, as speaking as gossip, complaining and passing on hearsay. So this has to do with understanding faults. And what she is reminding us here, and what certainly Dogen is reminding us here, is that this is all the stream. This is all the way. All the way. And when we tear down one thing, like, something here in this body, or tear down something here in this body, it is destroying the way. It's nothing less than that. So this is why it's so important to take a look at this, understanding that this is not so simple as picking at each other's faults and doing things like, oh, well, poor so-and-so, she just didn't get to her job yesterday because she's got some bad health, and it makes you wonder, doesn't it, if she can even do this job, will bless her heart. So we have things like that. This is actually, I have a love-hate relationship with this precept because I do it all the time. I will, I think, channel some patterns that I grew up with, whereby I thought if I couldn't claim the role of best girl in the world, I was probably going to be out on the street. Certainly no one's favorite, and I might not even get that gold star on my teacher's paper, right, that the teacher would give. So that, I think, trained me up to be competitive in a pretty creepy way. I don't care so much about winning games or anything, and I can tell that because I refuse to play them when they're super competitive. So, what's that all about? But I do have this innate, I think, both fear and pride about being in the top dog position. So I see myself doing this all the time, and I can tell when I'm doing it, and so I just modify the language a little bit so it's a little slyer and more evil. I just have a gift, I think, but it's because that's what I've been practicing. So this precept invites us and really exhorts us to, grab this by the ears and knock that stuff off, because it destroys community. It destroys the Sangha. Just no good at all. I think she's got a great little quote from Daido Lori in here, too, that I'm going to see if I can find. I marked the page here. I like this. How can we work with this precept? The main thing to work with is our relationship to our own faults. Isn't that always the case? That the things we pick at in other people are the things that we're most aware of in ourselves and want to be in complete denial of that going on. So, like so many things in Zen, maybe everything, or maybe nothing at all with a twist. It all comes back to what's going on here that we have trained ourselves into. And how can we make choices to not just do things differently and follow a path that is less destructive to all the people around us, including ourselves? How do we retrain ourselves so that we can find a way to actually be different, to change our mindset, and to not carry around our bag of strategies for how we can put someone down and let ourselves shine? Like that even works, Hard thing that. I'm going to take one more look for this thing from Lori, and then if I can't find it, we're just going to stop there. Nope, not going to find it. I think that when we had our own conversation about this practice of the precept that is helping us to be a little more honest and forthcoming about how we're talking about people, usually behind their backs, but some of us who are really good at this can do it right to their face. Bless their hearts. I just wonder if any of you would like to share something from your own remembrance of working with this sixth precept, or even now as something is coming up as your own life example of how you did this, I don't know, this morning, some other time. Go ahead, Pat, and yell it out.
Yes, I would like to say that to speak about my processing of this precept as a focus on individualism and the way it can sometimes be manipulated to silence speech about institutions of oppression. The example I would give is an experience I had in Amherst, progressive, like Seattle, when we were looking at the practices, unwitting practices that kept a senior center very white and very in a deeply cultural way, and unconsciously so. Not noticing who was not in the community and who was not. And on a board, there was an individual who did not want to use the word racism because, as he put it, it was just so negative.
Mm.
And so I think that finding a vocabulary of both discipline about speaking ill of others, of not speaking ill of others, needs, for me, needs to be tempered by the many systems that would harm the most vulnerable beings and animals and plants and planet. So that's my struggle with. I have many struggles with the and embrace of this the sentiment of this, but that's the nuance that I and struggle that I think about a lot.
Yeah. Well, so we can create both sins of commission and omission with this one as well. When we hear things that are outrageous and don't speak up, that is also a slander for us to not correct it. Did I see a hand over here? How about Barbara and then Joseph?
Yeah, what I think about this is when
Big voice.
When I'm with the Sangha, I feel as though my best self has a chance to come out. But when I'm with other people, I'm very vulnerable to where they are coming from. And if they're putting somebody down, bam, I'm right there with them very easily.
It's not a spectator sport, is it?
Yeah. No kidding. I feel like I'm so vulnerable to that. But this community then reminds me of my better self every time I come back to it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And this is a good reminder that this practice is intended to change us. Yeah. Joseph.
So one of the wonderful things about sesshin is you just get to sit with whatever your tendencies are and whatever's going on with your life and whatever you're obsessed with right now. So a couple of days before we came here, my wife, as gently as she could, pointed out that I'm leading a pretty distracted life these days. Part of that is I really enjoy getting into food fights on social media.
That never turns into slander, right?
Well, and to sort of very much like Patricia was talking about, it is important to discuss things and interact with things. Life is complex. We live in an atmosphere where it's really hard to talk about things.
Yeah.
We're very polarized. There's lots of name calling, lots of demonizing other views. I'm sure I've done some of that. But there's also, it's like there are things that we just don't talk about that are very important, or people are afraid to talk about.
Yeah.
Things like race, like gender, like reproductive rights, like political process, culture, language. I think it's important to be able to engage and talk about things without demonizing somebody who may have another point of view.
Yeah.
And that's something I just need to continue to work on myself.
Yeah.
And I'm critical of everybody. Just to point it out, I'm critical of progressives, I'm critical of conservatives, I'm critical of people who hold back and don't say anything.
Yeah.
So,
Whichever way you turn, you lose, huh? One of the tips that Mujo Baker has in this particular chapter is as we're trying to learn more about our habit patterns and to change some of the ways we interact and just kind of seamlessly slide into this stuff, is to be conscious of how you would talk to a beloved child. And I would add that how you would talk to a beloved child when you remembered that beloved child and it brought you to be your best self. Because certainly we can say pretty awful things to kids too, and that's why we grow up with patterns that we don't like.
would that be different from talking to a beloved teenager?
Probably.
Just to point that out.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Dinah, and then we'll wrap it up for today.
I really, really love the bit about what you're criticizing, just in your head, about other people is likely to be what you're criticizing in yourself. What you see in other people that reflects you is challenging.
Yeah.
And her prescription to recognize the oneness and that tearing down any part of the oneness is tearing down the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, I have a sister who's, I'm fond of saying her neuroses match up with mine way too closely. And it's so hard for me to not think ill of her because of it. And man, it's just me. So,
yeah.
But at the same time, I think that when I took Jukai 4 years ago, I phrased this as something about not putting myself above others or others above me. That,
Yeah, same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is the same thing. And recognizing that we are, I think it was Diane Rossetto who said, standing on equal ground.
Yeah.
We're all standing on equal ground. And that aspect of it really helped me to come to grips with, I was trained up pretty similarly. But these people need to know what they're doing wrong, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell you some stories, not even about just myself this time, but I'm not going to go there. One thing that I would like to invite you to do is to notice in the next few days, perhaps even the next couple of hours, when you are falling into a pattern like this, one of the examples she gave here was a woman who was telling her about someone she was observing, and she was feeling a little critical about this, and then she said, "At least my elbows don't look like that." Yeah, these ways that we have. So bring this to mind, to consciousness, because that is what Zen training is helping us to do. It's to help us focus and to pay attention to our intention. What are we going to do about that? What is it we want to be doing about that? And then let's just do that. Let's just practice that. All right. Thank you.